Yeah, it's been a while, but welcome on back. This is the Coin Flip Podcast. Jacob Zimmerman and Martin Kelly. A little bit ago, we broke down the NFL over-unders for the regular season win total before the NFL started. 6 weeks are about through in the NFL, and the NBA is now coming up 2 days away from when we are recording this podcast. The 2022-2023 season will start. Martin and I have gathered a list of 5 contenders from each conference. They're not all the contenders. They're just some contenders that we want to focus on today. So, Martin, did you have anything you want to say before we get going?
It's been a while since we've done this, bud, and you know what? I hope you're doing good out there in Iowa. Can't wait for you to come back to St. George when you get a chance, man, to visit and see all your friends again. But man, I hope you're having fun out there.
Appreciate it, man. I certainly am having a lot of work experience, having a good time out here. Not a ton to do, different kind of atmosphere, different place than St. George's. But Martin, I went and saw the Dixie State football game yesterday against University of Northern Iowa, so that was cool to see Dixie State, aka Utah Tech, come fairly close to where I live now in Iowa. So, but as
Yeah,
for and it's definitely an interesting experience. Missing a lot of the stuff that's happening in St. George right now.
yeah, everything's going on in St. George right now, man. We're about to enter the state playoffs right now. Your Crimson Cliff Mustangs won the Region 10 this year with a phenomenal 6-1 record in the region. Dixie, Snow Canyon, and then Desert Hills were rounding out the rest of that one. The very bottom team here, Jacob. This may have surprised you, but not entirely to everyone else here down in St. George. Pineview goes winless in the region. They go 0-9. They only won one game this year.
Wow, I guess you
Yes,
lose all your good players.
when you lose two two offensive linemen to BYU, you lose your running back to Clemson, and you have a bunch of other graduates. The recruiting and the sense of getting your sophomores and juniors up to date and being able to compete against the rest of the region isn't going to be pretty.
Let's dive into the NBA. We have our 10 teams. Let's start with the Western Conference. Martin, why not we start with the reigning champion, Golden State Warriors. 51.5 wins is their projected total. This is going to be an interesting one. I'll start this one off and I'll dish it over to you, Martin. I think Jordan Poole is bound to take a leap this year. I think he's going to go from averaging about 18, probably to about 22 or so. We're going to see how Klay Thompson looks. I think Klay, if he can give you about the same of what he gave you last year, maybe just a slight boost on the defensive end, I think that's about realistically all you can ask for this guy. Draymond's in the downhill. It'll be interesting to see how the younger pieces really fill in with this squad, the Wisemans, the Kamingas, the Moody's, all those young guys. But I think with Poole making that next step, I think the Warriors, they're a good regular season team over their dominance. They're not just a playoff team that gets hot. I'm going to say over 51.5.
I'm going to agree with you on that one, Jacob. They will be over one. They'll be over 51.5 on that one. And really, the only people I point towards, Jacob, you point towards some of the veterans. Klay Thompson, obviously Draymond Green, and Steph Curry. Those three have been the leaders of that team. But I'm going to focus on the young guns here. You brought up one of them, Jordan Poole. I agree with you. I think he'll take a step up. I saw Jonathan Wiseman and Kaminga in a preseason game the other day against Denver, and those two kids just look just as good as they did coming out of college. Obviously, Wiseman's taking him a little bit of time. He was projected to be a high top draft pick, and he's kind of taking his time to get into that form. And Kaminga, another high draft pick, and he looks like he's ready to take another step. I think if those three young guns can keep up with the older veterans who are starting to go on the other side of the peak, I really think the Warriors 51.5 is an easy bet to take. I would even try to think of them probably over 53.5 or 55.5. I know that's a stretch, but I think a guarantee they'll be over 51.5.
Another contender out of the Western Conference. Let's talk about the Los Angeles Clippers. 52.5 wins is their projection in 2023. Kawhi Leonard Oh, excuse me, Martin. I had my mic muted there. Let's talk about the Los Angeles Clippers. 52.5 wins is their season total projection in 2023. Kawhi Leonard, the main storyline here, coming back. He got a lot of time off. It's been like a year and a half since we've seen Kawhi Leonard out there on the basketball court. Paul George, you can talk all you want about his playoff struggles, but right now we're kind of focusing on the regular season. Regular season, he seems to show up. He's going to give you about 24 points per game on this squad once again. I like the recent additions. John Wall, he doesn't have to give you much, but if he can be efficient, not a defensive liability, that's certainly a plus. They've added a couple other pieces, some defensive wings, some 3-and-D wings. Covington, I believe, is one of them. There's another one I'm forgetting the name, but he played on the Raptors. And I think they have a lot of deep pieces on this team. I think the over. It's tough to say the over is going to hit because of how many games Kawhi misses. I'm going to say a slight under, but they are definitely going to sneak in north of at least a 6 seed into the West.
I agree with that one too. And the player you were talking about was probably Norman Powell from
Yeah.
Toronto. He came from Portland. I mean, they have Trace Mann, they have Kawhi Leonard, they have Paul George, Robert Covington, they have Ivan Zubac, they have John Wall. I mean, this is one of the teams, Jacob, coming into the season that's probably got the most depth at their positions, besides a few other teams in the league. Excuse me. I think what was the total you said? I apologize.
52.5.
52 and a half. I'm going to go over, and that's a slight over. The Western Conference to me, where we're starting with, is so loaded. I mean, there's more than 8 teams that are going to competing for those 10 spots to get into the playoffs. I mean, they could be around 2. They could either rebound 5. I think 52 and a half. I think over. I think that's a good number to go with.
Next team we're heading to is the Denver Nuggets. Martin, this Denver team turning a lot of heads. They're projected 49.5 wins in 2023. Obviously, Nikola Jokic, 2-time back-to-back MVP. Can he get a third? We'll have to find out. Obviously, you got Jamal Murray coming back from injury. This guy, I believe, can be a top 20 player in the league when you write out all the names. When you consider Murray to be healthy, when you consider how high he's peaked, he can reach that level again. I really think he can, Martin. The key here is going to be Michael Porter Jr. Can Michael Porter Jr. be healthy? Can he stay as an efficient scorer? Can he figure out where to be in the critical moments on the defensive end? Can he make the right pass? This guy has some insane shooting splits. His potential is so high. I think him and even Bones Highland off the bench, maybe he's going to get an occasional start this year. Those two guys really will control how much wins this team has in the regular season.
I agree with that. Michael Porter Jr., he's another one of those kids that was projected to be high. He was supposedly number 1 pick, and he had back issues in high school, and he had back issues when he went to Missouri in college, and he has already had some back issues and some knee issues in the NBA already in his young career, which has cost him a lot of time to start with so far. This team to me over 50 wins. I think 49 and a half is a low number to put with Denver. I think they're putting too much into, will Jamal Murray be the same after coming back from his injury? I believe so. Jamal Murray doesn't seem like those player that's going to take a step back. I don't think a Derrick Rose type scenario is going to happen to him. I think he'll have a type of Klay Thompson experience where the first 4 or 5 games will be rusty because game time and playing on the court is different than playing with a coach or with people in the practice arena because a game time simulated game isn't always what you can get at practice every time. So I think this team is interesting in the sense that Bruce Brown, Contavious Caldwell Pope, DeAndre Jordan, Ish Smith. They're going to need some help from the bench. That includes, Aaron Gordon as well, Jeff Green. Can they get some good playing from other guys that's not named Jamal Murray, that is not named Jokic, that's not named Michael Porter Jr.? If they can get a decent amount of play from those guys to contribute, obviously you take the 49 and a half over. I think this is a better basketball team than the projection is.
Next, we are talking about the Dallas Mavericks, a team that made it to the conference finals last year in the West against the Warriors. This team is obviously on our list because of one player and one player only, Luka Doncic. The questions around this team are going to start to pile up, I think, after this season and this postseason. I don't see them getting back to the conference finals. I think Luka Doncic can really potentially win the MVP, but in this stacked Western Conference with some teams coming back in the West, with some teams I think that are still going to hang around, perhaps some new emergers, Luka can have a great year. He can have an MVP caliber year, but I don't think he can maybe actually pull off this award. His team's probably not going to hit over 48 and a half. They'll still get into the playoffs, but in the bottom 5 through 8 range, I believe. Uh, this team just needs a second star. Otherwise, they're going to continue to fall short in the playoffs. Luka can only do so much. That's why he's drawing a lot of comparisons to a young 2007 LeBron.
I agree with you on that one. Looking at their roster, Davis Bertans, Reggie Bullock, Josh Green, you got Max Kleber, JaVale McGee, Dwight
Christian
Howard,
Wood just showed up.
Christian Wood. Did Christian Wood get traded there?
He did.
I did not know Christian Wood got there. Well, that's another good young superstar. That gives me a little more positivity. Christian Wood is a good basketball player. I don't know what Houston wasn't seeing, but okay, that's just me. Anyway, I agree with you on this one, Jacob. They are a 5 through 8 team in that sense that they've been searching for a second star. That's why they got Jalen Brunson. It didn't work out. That's why they went after Kristaps Porzingis. That didn't work out. That's why when Dirk and Luka were on their first team together, that didn't work out either. I think it's a little more in the sense of Luka not finding the right man for him. I think another ball handler, it doesn't fit the team. I think it's mainly they just need a just classic trustworthy shooter that Luka can pass off to, who can get him some easy buckets. And I don't see anybody on this team that has a nice, easy, quick shot that can help Luka in that scenario. I feel like Luka's going to be taking probably 40, 50 shots a night. He's going to have to be putting up 40, 50 points. I go under on the 48 and a half. I feel more comfortable if they're around 40 or 45 wins. I just don't see this team taking an upgrade step. I agree with you. I don't think they get back to the conference finals.
Next, to round out the West, this is a bit of a controversial one, but we have to talk about them. It's the Los Angeles Lakers. I've been keeping a close eye on the Lakers situation all off season. The clock has ticked down. It's out of time to get a Westbrook trade done before the regular season starts. But who knows? Maybe 10, 15, 20 games in, they'll pull the plug. But I will say this, Martin. After everything that's happened, we need to keep in mind two things. One, the media was in a very similar situation with everybody counting out LeBron when he first went to LA and had a down year and things didn't look well. After that, they end up winning a championship. A lot of people kind of put that on the back burner because the circumstances around that. I personally don't. But I think we've been in positions multiple times in LeBron's career where he's been doubted out, and I'm just at the point where I am not going to doubt out a guy who's consistently been at that level. His offensive stats are still the same as a prime LeBron James. If Anthony Davis is healthy, it looks like he's had a good camp. And I would say Westbrook, the reports of Westbrook coming off the bench in yesterday's preseason game, that's the best sign I've seen all offseason for the Lakers. And I'll take that going into the season. If he can come off the bench, it looks like, according to today, maybe the Lakers didn't have Westbrook in the starting lineup for Tuesday against the Warriors. We will see. I'm gonna lean in the over here, Martin. I think a lot of people will call me crazy. I just can't count out what I've seen time and time happen again. If the Westbrook situation, if they pull him off the bench, if they can trade him for Hield and Turner, I think they're going to hit over 45 and a half. But it all comes down to Anthony Davis's health, I believe, in the end. If AD stays healthy, this team's going to for sure go over 45 and a half.
I agree with you. I believe they will be over 45 and a half. And, you and I have talked about the Lakers since the first time we've done the podcast, and we've just been talking about the Lakers ever since then. And, they stay in the conversation. I don't disagree with that at all. I think when you look at their two superstars, obviously being Anthony Davis and LeBron James. LeBron James is 37. Anthony Davis is going to be 29, and both of them will be 38 and 30 before the end of the season. So you got to look at other players on this team. They got some good young, potential talent. Austin Reeves has shown a little bit of talent. He can stick around on a basketball team. Patrick Beverly, he's bounced around in a while, but he's always a good young player. Thomas Bryant, he's an okay backup center. You got Waylon Gabriel, he's a decent backup forward. You got Kendrick Nunn, which I still don't, at least from me, understand why he didn't play at all last year. But maybe there was another inside story
He's
that I
hurt.
didn't see. But him coming, yeah, well, that was being hurt, but what was being hurt? His feelings, and probably. But him coming back, I think is going to be nice. And the one player I'm going to watch out for, the one player that I know that's on the roster is Scottie Pippen Jr. I'm not saying he's going to get a ton amount of starts. He might not even get one start at all this year. But I don't think LeBron has to. I don't think LeBron should count out any of the young talent on this team from helping him. He's going to need all of that help that he can get. I think the Russell Westbrook situation is completely and utterly done. I don't think he wants to come off the bench. I would trade him in a heartbeat, but no one's going to take his $40 million unless you give him some draft picks. Supposedly that was with Indiana for a couple players. That didn't turn out right. I don't know. Maybe you could trade him back to Oklahoma City. Maybe get his contract off, but we're gonna want some first round picks for that, or maybe you can go to San Antonio. I just I think I think the Lakers will be 100% a better basketball team with Russell Westbrook away from them because he does not want to be in Los Angeles.
Martin, I agree with like 99% of what you just said. The only thing I will say is the young pieces, the rookies. I would say, not counting Reeves. I think Reeves has shown enough to be an actual player in the equation.
Lonnie
But the
Walker,
the
Lonnie
young,
Walker's. I was
what?
gonna say Jacob. Lonnie Walker's good. Dennis Schroeder's a good. Still, I mean, Schroeder's under 29. He
I
under
trust
30. He's
Schroeder. I
still.
trust Schroeder a bit.
I mean, hopefully you just don't play Matt Ryan with a 28-3 lead. God only knows what happens after that.
Yeah.
So you might want to make sure he stays on the bench. Troy Brown is a nice player. I mean, like I said, Wayne Gabriel is a decent player. I mean, there's some decent players on this basketball team, but I think I see way too much of Anthony Davis and LeBron James having to bail them out night in and night out. I don't know how much longer that's going to last with LeBron and Anthony Davis.
Well said. Well said. Now we move to the Eastern Conference. Now let's go to the Boston Celtics. Now they're going to be relying on a new coach this year with the whole Ime Udoka situation. But Martin, this team got to the finals. You could say what you want about the Bucks. This team got there. They finally broke through. They had been close all those years. Tatum did enough in the first couple rounds. Brown did quite a bit in the finals, and their number is 53.5 for this season. I think this is going to be interesting. You can look back to last year's regular season and see the Celtics got off to a slow start. I feel like I can almost predict a similar thing might happen with them this year. They have a couple nice pieces. Brogdon is there. I wouldn't doubt that the Jaylen Brown stuff is completely out of his head as far as the trade rumors for KD this year. I think with the coaching change, I think they're bound to have another slow start, but I think once again they will finish the last 42 as one of the best teams in the entire NBA. I think it's going to be close, but I'm gonna say slightly under, but maybe a game or half a game or so. I think once a team breaks through to the finals, the next regular season, they kind of relax just a little bit. So that's where I'm gonna go with that.
I agree with you. I've seen some other projections just listening to you here. I've seen 56 and a half. I've seen 55 and a half for them on some other sites for betting. I'm going to take. Here's the thing, Jacob. Here's the reason why I'm going to say the under. When you look on paper, this team looks like a team that can get back to the finals. Michael Brogdon, Jalen Brown, Dario Gallinari, Al Horford, you know, Marcus
Gallo
Smart,
is
Jason
hurt.
Tatum.
Gallo's gonna be out for the whole year now.
Say that again.
Gallinari is going to miss the
Oh,
entire season now.
actually, you're right about that. I forgot he got injured in the Euro games. Well, scratch him off. But still, they got Derek White, they got Grant Williams, they got Robert Williams. Those two, the Williams guys, are dealing with injuries, but they'll work that out as well. You look on paper, this team still looks like a team that can make it to the finals. Now, will it all project and come together on the basketball court? We're going to have to see. I think this new coaching situation and the entire Ime Aduka situation hanging over this team will be something that they're going to have to deal with, and it won't just go away that easily. If the new head coach gets out to a good start, maybe it all just flows down the river and just keeps on going. But if you're right about their slow start, Jacob, it's going to be a rocky start to begin with. And being that they're one of the teams that made it to the finals, there are high expectations for them. They no longer can hide under the title of being, a young basketball team or guys that don't know how to win. They do know how to win. They're no longer just young. I mean, yes, 24 and 26 for Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum still young, but they're not considered kids anymore. They've been in the league for a minute. They need to grow up a little bit. They need to get to that edge. I I see them as a potential team. The over and under. I'm going to go under on 53 and a half. I think there's going to be some bumps in the road. They still will be a high seeded team, but they're not going to be that dominant.
Now we move to the 2021 NBA champion Milwaukee Bucks, 52.5 wins, their regular season projection in 2023. This is going to be a tough one. It almost depends on how much the Bucks want to try for home court advantage in the playoffs. I think Giannis is going to be exactly who Giannis has been every single regular season for the last 3-4 years. I think this team kind of almost gets disrespected just a little bit because they're not a super flashy team. They're not going to shoot like Golden State, and their star player, has a ton of people from the past who played in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever, who just think that this guy is not that good. Giannis Antetokounmpo is that guy. He's the best player in the world as of this very moment. You can say what you want about the jump shot. I think he's been the best player for the last year and a half or so. Chris Middleton, I really like this guy. I think he's a solidified top 20 player in the league. If he's not hurt, they win the championship over Golden State. I think it's tough to see some team figuring out Giannis and Middleton. The only thing I will say, though, is that the depth is a little bit overrated on this team. I don't think they're very deep outside of Holiday, Middleton, and Antetokounmpo. As for the over-under, I'll say over.
I'm going to go over as well, and I disagree with you on that, statement on depth. I mean, listen, I'm not calling George Hill. I'm not calling Serge Ibaka. I'm not calling Jingles. I'm not calling Wesley Matthews. And I'm not calling Bobby Portis. All right. I'm not calling those six guys top level bench players. Okay. They're not like straight out of the box 6-man type players. Okay. I'm not going to go that far. I will stick with the over on this. But one thing that gets underrated about Milwaukee, Jacob, is their size. They got one player under 6'3". They have a 6'1" Javon Carter at point guard. That is their shortest
Wow.
player on their team. Everybody else is 6'3" and above. So the fact is, when you play in the Eastern Conference, you have to be big. You have to have some size. Jared Allen is 7 foot. Joel Embiid is 7 foot. Bobo is going to be playing some minutes with Orlando. He's over 7 foot. You got to worry about, you know, sorry, there are names that are escaping my head. If I had more time, I would have been prepared for this. But my point is, the Eastern Conference has got big guys, and they're not just going to go away without a fight. I think their size is going to be an advantage for them all season. Obviously, they'll be one of the best rebounding teams with all of this size on their team. That is not a surprise to me. If Joe Ingles and if Drew Holiday and if Wesley Matthews can just knock down enough 3-pointers, Jacob, I think they have enough 3-point shooting on this team to skate by in the playoffs and to just dominate when they have to dominate. I can't get over their size to me. Their size to me is their biggest and ultimate weapon. And I think if they use that correctly, the over on the 52.5 is a smart projection.
Moving now to the Philadelphia 76ers. Martin, I think this is going to be maybe one of the teams that we disagree on the most. We agree with a lot of teams, but here are the Sixers, 50.5. I'm going to say they easily go over 50.5 regular season wins. Now, you can say the East is better than it used to be, but here's what I'm looking at. James Harden, he's not the James Harden he was in Houston, but quite frankly, I don't think he has to be. I think he can still be a 21 points, 9 assists, 7 rebound kind of guy on good shooting splits and still get the praise he deserves to have if this team can, have a lot of success. Here's the key. This season, Joel Embiid, if he stays healthy, he's probably going to win the MVP. I think I can confidently say if he stays healthy, he's probably going to win it. I think he should probably have a little bit better odds than he does currently right now. And I think the biggest thing with Philadelphia is Tyrese Maxey. Tyrese Maxey this season is going to solidify himself as probably without a doubt one of the top 10 players under the age of 25. I don't think there'll be a case about that at all. I think this guy's going to jump up towards 23, 24 points per game. If you look at his efficiency from last year, this guy shot nearly 43 or 44% from 3 on a decent amount of attempts. And Martin, this is a ball handler. This isn't Klay Thompson spotting up in the corner, just catching and shooting. This is going between the legs, crossover behind the back, sidestep, hand in your face 3, and still shooting good efficiency. Tyrese Maxey is the real deal. Tyrese Maxey is the reason this team is going to blow 15.5 wins likely out of the water.
I'm going to go under. Now, I know we were talking about it off the podcast here, and I was giving you some saying the Chicago Bulls are a better basketball team than the Philadelphia 76ers, and I'm going to stand by that, Jacob. I'll get to the Bulls a little bit later if you give me a chance to do that. I'm going to stick to the 76ers here. I agree with you. I think Tyrese Maxey is one of those players. If he takes another step with this basketball team, that's going to take some time and pressure off of Joel Embiid and James Harden from them having to do all of the load for this basketball team. I think if he can knock down his shots, I think if he can play at the point guard spot correctly, and him and James Harden can work out their chemistry, I 100% agree with you. That is a very solid player that can help this team. Outside of that, Jacob, I don't see how this team can be successful as they're built. I'm looking at their roster. I do not know who Julian Champagne is. I don't know who Michael Foster Jr. is. I don't know who Shake Milton is. I'm
Doesn't
supposed to
matter.
trust.
It doesn't matter.
Wait. My point is this, Jacob, is I don't see any true depth on this roster that can go outside of Joel Embiid, James Harden, and Tyrese Maxey that can knock down enough shots or can create enough offense to help those 3 guys out. This team reminds me of the Houston Rockets teams that James Harden and Dwight Howard were stuck with, which was they were surrounded by some decent shooters. Both Dwight and James Harden had to do a chunk of the load, and it turned out to be wins, but it didn't turn out to help them in the playoffs. So, I mean, yes, this is for the regular season. To stick to that, yes, they will be a good basketball team. I say under 50.5 wins. I just don't see them having enough help. That's just me.
2 teams left in this one. We are going to go with the Miami Heat. The Heat gave the Celtics a real run for their money in the playoffs. 48.5 is the number. Now the Heat are not a regular season team. The Heat definitely coast in the 82 games that they play, gearing up for the playoffs. So it's kind of hard to project them. I would say with the Heat, out of all these teams that we've talked about, they might be most likely to finish right around this 48.5 marking. I think they probably don't get to 50, but I don't think they'll I don't think they'll win 45 or less. I think they'll be in the 46 to 49 range. Jimmy Butler's a nice piece. Tyler Hero, I think, is a little overrated. Kyle Lowry's on the back end. Bam Adebayo, he's improved since he's gotten to the league. He's one of the best defensive players in the league. I don't know if he can ever be that offensive threat that they really want him to. Victor Oladipo, I think he's really the key with this piece, with this team, but I don't see him ever being quite what he used to, and therefore I think that's what ultimately holds the Heat back.
I agree with you on that. The 48.5, I say that's actually a good number for them. I could see them winning 49 games too. I agree with you on that. Victor Oladipo is not the same player he was. I think Tyler Hero's got more potential. I mean, he's only 22 and he was a running in for six man of the year and he got paid this offseason. We'll see if that pays off. Obviously, Jimmy and Bam are the faces of the team, and Jimmy's 33, Bam Adebayo's 25. So we'll see how they're Miami's not a young team, Jacob. They got three players. They got two players at 33. Udonis Haslam isn't playing any time. He's just 42. He's just sitting on the bench being coached. Lowry's 36. Oladipo is 30. Duncan Robinson, he's still under the age of 30. He's 28, but he hasn't really taken any strides either. Gabe Vincent, Marcus Stroos, they gave you some time in the playoffs, but they haven't really done anything either. This roster just feels incomplete to me. There's potential, but they haven't filled every position that I think they could have done, and I think that's going to hold them back a little bit. I agree with you. I think 48.5 is a good number for them to sit at.
Our last contender from the Eastern Conference, the Cleveland Cavaliers. Our last contender from the Eastern Conference, Martin, is going to be the Cleveland Cavaliers. 47.5 is their number. Martin, I think this is going to be a good regular season team. It's hard for me to see them going under this number. I'm not thinking about the playoffs just yet with these guys. I think this is going to be maybe I'll say a similar story to kind of how they were last year, how they kind of took the Eastern Conference by storm. They were the 4 seed for a long time until the end of the regular season. I think they can get in those top 4 seeds. Donovan Mitchell, as the number one true option on a championship team, he's not quite there yet. But this Cavs team is also really young, and they have the chance to grow into that. I really like Evan Mobley. I think Jared Allen, he's not a super flashy offensive threat, but he's one of the best defensive rim protectors in the league. I think the front court of Cleveland is the best front court, probably defensive-wise, 100% defensive-wise in the entire NBA. You pair that now with 2 guards who can get it done on all 3 levels on the offensive end, the mid-range, the 3, and the finishing. Garland and Mitchell, the real deal. They just need to figure out what to do with the 3 spot. Is it Isaac Okoro? Is it Kevin Love? Who's it going to be, for Cleveland filling in that spot? I think they might struggle with some shooting from their front court at some times, but, if Mitchell and Garland can do how I think they can do, then this team is going to soar above 47.5.
Looking at their roster, 47.5 is not a bad number to project them at. And, they got a lot of depth on this team. They got Jared Allen, there's Darius Garland, Karis LeVert, Robin Lopez, Kevin Love, Donovan, Evan. They got, Isaac Oroko. Sorry, I said that wrong. Ricky Rubio. I mean, they got a decent amount of depth on this team. And maybe they get some other young players on this team that have already been here. Maybe they step up a little bit. It's just it's again with Chicago. They're stuck in my head. I'm sorry about it. I think 47.5 is a good number. I think they'll sit at that number, maybe slightly under, maybe slightly over on that. This is this is the team that can finally break the bubble, Jacob, of being better without LeBron James. It was the title, it was the bubble, the it just was the cloud that hung over Kyrie before LeBron came back. Was Kyrie ever going to get the team over the hump without a LeBron James? Could he have carried that team without a LeBron James? And unfortunately, he didn't do it without LeBron James because they won with LeBron James. Could this finally be the team that takes that next step and can take that title of LeBron James always carries the Cleveland Cavaliers when he's there away? I think so. Donovan is that type of player. He is a face of a franchise. Garland's a really nice player. Mobley is a nice player. This team's got talent. This team's young. They can grow into their spots. Jared Allen, to me, is already a solidified center. Even at 24 years old, he is that good. Yeah, 47.5 feels right to me.
And Martin, I will give you the floor. Now, I don't think they are a serious contender, but you want to talk about the Chicago Bulls. I will give you a minute to talk about the Bulls and explain your case why you think this team has any sort of shot at winning a championship or at least getting to a finals appearance in 2023.
And the simple answer to that one, Jacob, is Andre Drummond. All right, I could talk about this for 20 minutes on Andre Drummond. Listen, if you go back to last season, the biggest problem with the Chicago Bulls was they had no one inside that could challenge anybody besides freaking Nikola Vucevic. And Nikola Vucevic was getting beat up every single time. And because he was getting beat up, he wasn't able to shoot the three-pointers or take the three-point shots that he wanted. He was so far out of his own game. He is not a center. He is a power forward. You put him back at the four, that's going to help out. All right, they got Andre Drummond who will sit at that five spot. He will rebound. He will do all the dirty work. He will compete against Jared Allen. He'll compete against Joel Embiid. He'll beat up on him. Listen, we don't have Lonzo Ball to start this year. I knew the Lonzo Ball thing was a bad signing because his knees are already cooked and the dude's not even 25. I'm older than Lonzo Ball and I have better knees than him, okay? Listen, Alex Caruso, DeMar DeRozan, Oyo DeSomo, Gordon Dragic, Andre Drummond, Derek Jones, Zach LaVine, Kobe White, Nikola Vucevic. That is enough talent. Plus, Dallin Terry. Okay, Dallin Terry came from Arizona. He has shown some potential in the preseason games already. This team is going to be better. The only thing that's going to cost them, and I wish they would have done in the offseason, is fire Billy Donovan. Okay, Billy Donovan's a nice guy. He's a good coach, but he got outplayed and outcoached and outmanaged in Oklahoma City by the two superstars that he tried to help win a championship. And they lost that 3-1 series with Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. That was enough for me from that moment to say he's a good basketball coach, but not a great NBA basketball coach. I wish they would have had another head coach coming into the season, but I don't get my wish on that. Still, I think this team will finish in the top five. They're projected to go this season, Jacob. The Chicago Bulls are supposed to be 41.5. I'm taking the over. There's no way they finish at 41.5. They will finish around 47 to about 50 wins. Yeah, I said that because they are that good.
Hmm. This is going to be a
You
tough scenario, and I think
you watch, man.
what's happening is that what's going to happen this year in the NBA is there's going to be about 12 teams that are actually going to try as hard as they possibly can to win as many games as they can. Then there's going to be about maybe 10 more who at the start of the year try and then start to coast. And then there's going to be teams that just flat out tank for Victor Wembanyama and Scoot Henderson. Martin, your team's not going to be tanking. And I think your team has a chance to get above 41 and a half. If you put a gun to my head right now, I would say over if I had to choose. So I'm not being disrespectful at all. I'm actually agreeing with you on the overall over-under. But I will say, if you're going to bring up the fact that Andre Drummond is your missing piece to a championship, to me that explains it all. I think Lonzo Ball is a nice piece. I think he can be a decent starting point guard in this league. Keep in mind, if you're a decent starting point guard in this league, that means you're just about a star player. As for the bulk of this team, Zach LaVine's really interesting because Zach LaVine has shown the ability to get hot from three. He has the killer athleticism that everybody knows, but there's something missing. It feels like Zach LaVine has he's getting really close to a ceiling. It feels like a lot of times you'll look statistically, a rookie will come in averaging a certain amount, and each year they're supposed to boost up a certain amount little by little. I think Zach LaVine is just about hitting his peak, and I don't think he's one of those players who has as much. I don't think his 27 points per game or whatever he averages are as impactful as another as like someone like Kawhi Leonard's 27 points per game, if you know what I'm trying to say. DeMar DeRozan, great story. If this guy can continue to hit some three balls and stuff, then Chicago's definitely going to win above 41.5 games. I just think they are built to make the playoffs, but they are not built to make it past the first round. No way in my mind does this team beat the Bucks? Does this team beat the 76ers? Does this team beat the Celtics? Does this team beat even the Cavs? Even I don't know about the Hawks. The Hawks I think
But
could finish with a
oh,
better record than the Bulls. So I don't know. The Chicago, they're going to make the playoffs. Don't get me wrong. I'm not being disrespectful, but no way this team gets past the first round.
I agree with that. I agree with that. And finally, this is my final thing. My other favorite basketball team, the Oklahoma City Thunder. I hope they lose. They say 25 and a half. I hope that number goes down to like 19 and a half because they need to lose as much as they can to get one of these top picks. We'll see who they pick. The top two picks. I can't say his last name, so I'm not even going to try. But the two top prospects that the NBA are projecting to be the top two picks are pretty interesting. I'm holding out on the ideas of their potential just because being over 7 foot has never been an amazing combination in the NBA. Yes, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was over 7 foot. Yes, Shaquille O'Neal was over 7 foot, but those guys were outliers in that the fact that they kept themselves pretty in they were beyond the outliers of what being a 7 footer is. And being a 7 footer in the NBA is a hard job to be. So we'll see how that goes. Obviously, Chet Holmgren's out for the year, and that's why I'm saying the 7 footer thing. And the injuries and the knees and all that. But I hope the Thunder lose. I hope they only win about 18 or 19 games, and I hope they get a top pick, and I hope they can finally turn it around.
All right, that is going to do it for the Coin Flip Podcast, talking NBA over unders. Jacob Zimmerman, Martin Kelly, breaking down what is going to happen this year with the Contenders in the 2022-2023 NBA season. Hope you guys have a good one. The NBA season starts on Tuesday. Folks, stay sporty.
Later.